Now today, Ducati just announced a brand new Venti Due update for hands down the best looking superbike on the market, the Panigale V4 and the V4S. They do this thing where they send a few riders out and do lap times on the new bike and the previous gen, and they've done it again this year, claiming that both the two testers and the pro rider Michel Pirot improved their performance on the new machine, and quite substantially. A big part of that, they say, is down to the ease of use. Because of changes they've made all across the bike, they say it's more accessible and less tiring to ride for extended stints. So in this video, I'll tell you about all the changes they've made to achieve this. We've still got the same 1103cc Desmo V4, but there are plenty of tweaks that improve both peak power and throttle response. A new oil pump saps less energy from the engine, but also they've increased the size of the outlet on the silencer, reducing back pressure for a freer flow of air. Combined with a new dedicated map, there's now 215.5 horses peak up at 13,000 RPM, so that's 1.5 up on the previous generation. They also say that once you pass that peak up towards the red line at 14,500 RPM, it's now making 2.5 more horses. Peak torque is down by a Newton meter, so 123 now, but it does make it 500 RPM lower in the rev range at 9.5. So some changes here and there to the output, but these are all pretty marginal and probably not that noticeable in reality. More likely that you'll notice the revised gear ratios in first, second and sixth. It's now more specific to track riding, with a first gear that's been lengthened by 11.6% and second by 5.6. So they say that you can now get down into first in more low speed corners with more engine braking and better acceleration as you exit. On top of that, the jump down the revs between first and second is smaller, so that allows the quick shifter to work better. And then you've got a 1.8% longer gear in sixth, which adds another 5 km per hour to the top speed. Should you want even more performance, there's a new titanium full race system developed with Akropovich, and it makes another 12.5 horsepower up top, taking the peak to 228. You also get more torque, so 131 Newton meters, and at the same time you shed 5 kilograms of weight. Now there was already a shorter version in the accessories catalogue that sheds 6 kilograms and makes the same power, but it's too loud for most track days with a limit of 105 decibels. The old one makes 109 and 107 with the baffle in, whereas the new version brings it down to 102. Not only have Ducati improved the venting in the lower part of the fairing, which they say improves cooling to the engine, but there's also a cutout on the left hand side that ensures the quick shifter sensor doesn't get too hot during extended track sessions. You still get the Showa fork and sack shock on the standard V4, and the more premium full Öhlins electronic system on the V4S is basically unchanged, but it does now get a pressurized cartridge damping system inherited from Öhlins racing forks. They say the benefit is that it minimizes the risk of oil cavitation. To be honest, I had to look that up on Wikipedia, and basically it says that if the pressure gets too low, you can get vapor-filled cavities or bubbles, so the pressurization basically helps to remove the risk. In reality, they say it leads to better support under braking, better absorption of bumps, and therefore a better feel for the rider. On top of that, there's 5mm more travel in the fork now, which means softer springs can be used, improving performance on rough tarmac, which helps to maintain grip. For this year, they've moved the pivot for that beauty of a single-sided swing arm, with it now sitting 4mm higher. This helps to increase the anti-squat action, which helps to keep the bike stable under acceleration. That's pretty much it for the chassis changes, so the Brembo Stylema brakes and the Pirelli Supercorsa SP tyres are carried over from the previous generation, and you also still get the lightweight 3-spoke forged wheels on the S, and 5-spoke cast wheels on the standard V4. From an aerodynamic perspective, the winglets have had a redesign. Ducati claim greater efficiency for this incarnation, so they still make the same downforce on the front wheels, so up to 37 kilograms at 300 kilometers per hour, but they're smaller and thinner with a double profile design, and as a result they create less drag. Comfort has also been looked at, with Ducati making changes to both the seat and the fuel tank in order to maintain comfort through longer track sessions. The seat is now flatter to enable the rider to change position with ease, and there's also a better grippy coating, helping to stop the rider from sliding forward under heavy braking. The fuel tank has a new shape that firstly adds a litre of capacity, but secondly improves the contact patch with the rider so that they can better anchor themselves during hard braking and cornering. They also say that it has an improved contact area with the arms for when the rider's hanging off. Onto the electronics, and the power modes have had a pretty decent overhaul this year, with a new full and low setting to complement high and medium. Full is the sportiest setting they say they've ever offered on the Panigale, with no electronic filtering at all, apart from in first gear. High and medium have had their settings revised, so you now get a specific throttle map for each of the 6 gears, and that means that you always get the best response when you open the throttle. Low has been introduced for more leisurely road riding, with peak power capped at 150 horses, and a throttle response that they call particularly manageable. The TFT dash gets an update too, with a new track Evo screen joining the existing road and track layouts. This one is said to incorporate feedback from MotoGP riders, so the rev counter is flat across the top, making it more visible when the rider is in a full-on aero tuck. The gear position has been moved to the middle, making it the most easy to spot readout on the screen. And then of course you get a full suite of lean sensitive rider aids powered by a 6-axis IMU, and on the right of the screen there's now a color block for traction control, wheelie control, slide control, and engine braking control. Each of these will illuminate in their designated color when that particular tech is intervening. The general idea is that if rider aids are cutting in, then you're losing time, so minimizing the amount of time that those lights are on will benefit lap times. On top of that, you've now got an external green LED on the top left of the dash, and that's the gear change indicator. So again, this location makes it nice and easy to spot in any riding position. In terms of styling, the shape of the bike is still the same, which is massively a good thing in my book, but there are some small changes, probably just to differentiate the new model year. Both versions are still just available with the red paint, but they now get black logos. On top of that, the S gets a 2-tone seat and also some detail on the forged rims. Now look, a massive shout out to Ducati for getting their prices on the website right away. It's all well and good saying you've made the bike way better, but if the price is doubled, then it isn't obviously going to be great news for the customer. For 2022, the standard V4 starts at $29,995, and then the V4S is another $5,000 on top. So that's a price increase of $1,000 for the standard bike and $1,200 for the S, which seems that's reasonable, I think, for what you're getting. A lot of the updates do sound marginal, but the lap times when they all combine speak for themselves. Let me know what you think of it though down in the comments below, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, including all of the latest new bike news, then hit subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.